You will not find the word miracle in the Gospel of John. He doesn't use the word for a number of reasons. The main one was that John wanted us not to think so much about miracles per se, but rather think of these wondrous things that Jesus worked as signs that point beyond themselves, which is what a sign does anyway. It doesn't really attract so much attention to itself as it indicates something else. So the question is, well, what kind of sign value does changing water to wine have? And one of the things is this. Now, think about this. This is a wedding reception, and most of the people have already drunk their wine. Jesus comes along and changes 180 gallons worth of water to wine. Now, no wedding reception in the world needs all that wine, I can tell you. One writer estimates that 1,000 bottles of wine came out of that. So we wonder, well, why did Jesus do that? Doesn't need to be very practical on his part. But the whole thing is a sign. It's not so much about what he did, Cana. It's about what does this mean for us even today. And the word that comes to mind is abundance. Jesus produces a great abundance. His ministry produces an abundance of blessings, represented by the wine. The wine is even better than the original wine. So that's another thing, the quality of what Jesus does is better than what went before. So what are some of these blessings? Now, I would invite people sometime maybe today to come up with some things you can think of. I'll say some of them. Who could really do justice to this question? What are the abundant blessings that Jesus provides? But it's good to at least come up with some, because that increases our understanding of Jesus, who he is, what he provides, and our need for him. When Jesus displayed his heart to St. Margaret Mary, who was a nun in southern France, the Sacred Heart statue right here, he made a number of promises. He said, for example, that he would console people in their afflictions where his heart was honored. His heart was really a symbol for himself. And that he would establish peace in people's homes. So we could say that consolation in difficulties and peace are two blessings that Jesus brings people in today. Another thing has to do with wholeness. I remember a woman who, when she was in college, had 2 abortions. Now, one of the things about this, obviously, besides the damage done to the children, is the woman actually hurts herself. And there is a form of post-traumatic stress disorder that many women are afflicted with, because that's what happens. When a person takes another person's life, we're not made to do that. So she came to her senses, and she was a Catholic woman, and she turned to the Lord, and she went to confession, and so forth. But her whole personality then began to benefit from a new relationship with Jesus that she hadn't had before. And not only that, but she went into a ministry where she helps women who've gone through these terrible things recognize what they've done and come to terms with what they've done, seek reconciliation, and receive wholeness. So this is an example of true conversion, and that's a messianic blessing. Conversion of heart, conversion of mind, conversion of the way we look at things, the way we look at our own lives. This is the kind of thing that Jesus can bring to people. I remember one time I had a retreat. I believe it was for women, and I had basically one question to ask the people, which this is a question that stumps many Catholic people, and perhaps some others who would hear it. But the question is, if you were to stop believing in Jesus, let's say, this is theoretical, I'm sure it isn't going to happen, let's say tomorrow, this person would stop believing in Jesus. Well, what kind of decision would the person make that would indicate that he no longer believes in Jesus? Now, besides the obvious one, well, I would stop going to Mass. Okay, we'll assume that will take place. But what other things would happen? When people think about this, some people can't come up with any answers because they don't really understand the question. Why would I stop believing in Jesus? Now, they want to be a good person, they want to keep the commandments, and so forth. That's what throws them. You don't have to believe in Jesus to keep the commandments because the Jews keep the commandments and the good ones anyway. So what is it about Jesus that's different? And one woman said, there are many things that can be said to this question, but one woman said, Father, I think I would have to decide to start going to counseling. Now, why would somebody need to rely on some sort of counseling to stop believing in Jesus? Well, one of the things is because Jesus brings forgiveness to people. He tells us also to forgive those who hurt us. To be open to that means to be open to living without interior bitterness. It means to be open to living a full life, an abundant life. Let's face it, a so-called Christian person, Catholic, who's filled with interior poison, is not experiencing messianic blessing. And it's not Jesus' fault. So whenever we hear, for example, in the gospel about the importance of forgiving those who hurt us, and praying to those who dislike us or persecute us, these are not meant to be onerous or burdensome requirements. They're actually meant to free us to be people who are living lives of abundant joy and peace. But this is the kind of thing that Jesus brings. Not that everyone necessarily appreciates this type of stuff. How many times have we heard people talk about, oh yes, the Catholic Church makes people feel guilty about this and that? Well, really the point is to bring people to interior wholeness. We can't do that unless we acknowledge that we need help. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging that. And Jesus provides us help. He has an abundance of blessings that he offers people. That they're there for the taking. If we want them, they're there. Not interested, then we're like the man who shuts his blinds in the middle of a sunny day. Well, the sun's still shining, but he's in the dark. This can happen. Jesus performed his miracle at Cana, which was the scene of a wedding reception. One of the abundant blessings Jesus gives is he made marriage into a sacrament. We know that there are many difficulties in marriages today. Let me just tell you I'll give you one example. Think about this. A study coming out of Chicago indicates first of all, the divorce rate is about 50%, 1 out of 2. When people marry in church and continue to go to church, the divorce rate in this particular study drops down to 1 out of 50. That's better than 1 out of 2. And then when people marry in church, continue to go to church regularly and pray at home, the divorce rate drops down to 1 out of 1,200, according to the study. Why would that be? Well, if anybody who invites Jesus and Mary to their marriage will have a blessed marriage. It doesn't mean they won't have any problems. It doesn't mean that one spouse will fulfill a person's complete, total expectations. It won't happen. But people will be able to live their marriage as indicated. They will take seriously their responsibilities. They will be much more apt to love their partner with all partners' defects. and weaknesses. The real person that one's wife and husband is, not just an ideal that a person has in his head and says, when my wife or my husband doesn't come anywhere near this, I don't think I love him anymore. That's our culture talk. We have to be open to what Jesus is about. We're supposed to be his people. And again, we have everything to lose if we don't open ourselves to this blessing. The Mass is a great blessing. Again, not everyone understands it. It goes back to the Last Supper. It was Jesus' idea. I always think about the Mass. Jesus changed water into wine. In the Mass, he changes wine into blood. Changes bread into body and blood. Padre Pio, who was an Italian stigmatist, he had the wounds of Jesus on his body 50 years, 50, most of his life as a priest, said that a day without the Mass is like a day without the sun. And what he meant by that is a cataclysmic disaster. Without the Mass, we wouldn't have the world today. And I say that with all humility. I mean, let's face it, every hour somewhere in the world there's a priest celebrating Mass. This is a gift from God. And there isn't anything that is the source of more praises today than the Mass, the action that brings us together, which Jesus offers himself, or he makes himself present as an offering to the Father on our behalf. I wish more Catholics appreciated the Mass. 2/3 of our people don't come to Mass regularly. It's sad. I mean, we have the greatest thing going, a great repository of spiritual wealth, life-changing potentials, blessings beyond anything we can imagine. But like the man who has $1 million in the bank and doesn't even know it. I mean, some people. Think about it. Our Lady is a great blessing. Some people say that, I can go directly to God. I don't really need the Blessed Virgin Mary. And it's true. We can pray right to the Lord, but nobody says you can't. But in Cana, the unnamed bride and groom approached Our Lady. And she was the one whose entreaty moved Jesus to change water into wine. It's something for us to think about. She's our Mother in the Order of Grace. Another great blessing is, of course, the resurrection. The resurrection means Jesus rose from the dead, and his resurrection is the future source and principle of the future resurrection of the faithful Christian. We're all going to die. Jesus is the answer to this. Now we have to be convinced of this. Many people are not. In fact, the Gallup poll recently indicated 16% of so-called Catholic people say that the resurrection is not that important to me or not important at all. I think that's a low number, 16%. For more people don't really consider the resurrection very important. What are they looking for? What is our faith all about? St. Paul said that Jesus has not risen from the dead, then our faith is completely empty. It's like a house of cards. There's nothing there. There's no substance to it. We have no hope. Jesus gives us abundant hope. He gives us blessings. He's offering these things to us all the time.